projects. I've demonstrated enough Splunk for a while, but let's talk about the attack matrix. Now, this thing's been around for several years. It's already up to the 9th version. When I first saw it, I was just recoiled in horror at all these hundreds of things, but I got used to it, and I realized you really need to know all this stuff in this business. Now, you don't need to have every detail of every attack memorized, but these terms should all be more or less familiar to you if you're going to be in this business. And so the thing this is the, there was originally something called the Lockheed Martin kill chain, which would break an attack into various phases and steps. And this is a more detailed version of the same thing. This is a way to list all the things an attacker might do, more or less in the order in which they do them, and then all the techniques they might use, and then all the defenses you ought to have to stop that. So this is the beginning of trying to define security metrics and turning this field from an art into a science. So first, there are the tactics, enterprise tactics. And so these are the stages of an attack approximately. Not every attack will do these stages, but this is their idea. There are now 14 of them. In earlier versions, there were only 12, which is why you'll see the numbers aren't quite in order. So before they even go to your company, they do recon, where they do things like Google about you and try to figure out about your company and you know what you have and what kind of technologies you use and stuff. Then they develop resources so they're ready to attack you. Like they find cloud servers to use and attack tools to use and hire people with like skills and stuff. Then initial access, they're trying to get into your network. Then they try to, once they have some way to intrude on your network, they now try to find some way to run some code on your network. And so typically they get on your network by sending spam email. In this reconnaissance, they get some email addresses for people at your company. Then they develop some kind of malware to attach to an email. Then they send it into your network. And then they get somebody to click on a link. Then now they'll be able to run some code on your network. Now, persistence is maintaining the foothold so they don't lose connection with your network when that machine is turned off or rebooted or somebody runs an antivirus scan or something. And then they want to escalate permissions, because typically when you first enter, you just have like a normal user account on an unimportant end device like a laptop. And you want to escalate permissions up to administrator on a laptop so you can install more software. Then they often have to avoid defenses like antivirus and intrusion detection systems, steal data like account names and passwords, so they can now get onto other systems. And then they try to scan your environment. This is discovery, to find out what servers you have, what data is stored, what stuff you have that they might want. And then they do lateral movement, compromise another system and sort of wander through your network, taking over more and more systems and leaving more and more malware and backdoors and proxy services, a trail back to them. And then they collect their goal, which is your credit card numbers, your user database, or whatever their goal is. Then there's command and control. If they have compromised systems that are under persistent control, there is often a command and control server so they can change what those systems are doing and order them to do this and order them to do that. Then they usually want to steal data, so there is some way to sneak the data off your network. In the case of the original APT in 2010 against Google from China, they took the data and broke it up into small packets and compressed it and encrypted it, and then they sent those little encrypted files off the network to China, and that's how they got caught. Google noticed, why is this stuff going to China? And that's not one of our Chinese locations, so who is sending weird stuff to China, and what is this stuff? And then the impact. They achieve whatever their goal is. It might be that they want to modify your software, like SolarWinds, to poison other companies that use your software. They might want to just trash your system like they had did to Aramco in Saudi Arabia because they hate you and they just want to ruin your business. They might want to change the safety protocols of your system so your factory machines, your factory safety controls are off and try to get people killed, which they also try to do to Saudi Aramco. Anything. They accomplish their goal. So that's the general idea. These are the tactics. These are the bad things your enemy wants to do. And for each tactic, there are techniques, which are the specific things that they might use to reach that goal. So that's what this matrix gives you. in reconnaissance, there are various categories like active scanning with Nmap, gather information, and search closed sources, and so on. Open sources is things like Google and Shodan. Closed sources are things where you need a login and password to get in, like the sort of stuff that detectives have. And then there's resource development, initial access. There's all these techniques. And when I first saw this, I thought it was too many, and then I realized I do know a lot of this stuff. Like if you want to execute code, one way to do it is, of course, to send commands like DOS commands or PowerShell commands that run through a scripting interpreter. Another way is to deploy a container in the environment and then run the container, like a Docker container. Another way is use the native API in Windows to send system calls that will not be picked up by a lot of scanners, and so on. So these are all things you should have some familiarity with. And that's the only point of these projects, is to make you study this thing and search through it and read some of these and start to get a clue how it works. So here you just have, these things are basically quizzes. If you go here, it's going to ask you questions, and you have to go until you get 5 in a row correct to get the answer. And you have to look them up here on the matrix. So this one says, what tactic uses the technique establish accounts 1585? So I got to find establish accounts in this mess. And I could guess establishing accounts. I might guess that's credential access. Do I see establish accounts? Not obviously here, but it might be one of the sub-factors. So another thing I can do is use the search engine that's somewhere on this page. There it is. Let's try establish accounts. It's, establish. There. Establish accounts. Techniques 1585. It's here. So if I click on that, I'll get to this one. And this tells me Home Techniques Enterprise, and it is part of resource development. So that's the answer, resource development. And now I have one correct. So that's the sort of thing. These are just little quizzes, and when you get 5 in a row, you'll get a flag. So it's really pretty simple. And by the way, these are pretty easy to cheat on if you know a little bit of web hacking. But anyway, so that's what the next several projects are worth. And the one at the end is, and so you do attack tactics, and then you do various techniques, and then you do the groups. The attack groups are also listed here. So if you go to the groups one, it will ask you like which group targets Ukrainian government officials. And in addition to tactics and techniques in the matrix, here's the matrix, which is tactics and techniques, but you also have groups here, and software for that matter. The groups list all the groups and tell you what they've done. Here's the original APT1 is the one that hacked Google, the Chinese threat group. And there's ones with numbers, then there's ones with names. And the names are tied to like kittens are the ones from Iran, and bears are the ones from Russia, and panda are the ones from China. And a lot of them, others, just have other names. So anyway, this one here, the question was Ukrainian government officials. So somebody here attacks Ukrainian government officials, and I might just be able to do a search on this page. Ukrainian does not appear here. No, I spelled it wrong. Ukraine. Okay. Still doesn't appear anywhere on here. Must be on a more detail. All right, let's see if the search engine will do me any good. Ukrainian. I spelled it wrong again. Oh. Well, this one's going to be tougher than I thought. I wonder how I did it. One way to do it is there's only 4 choices. So you can just read these groups and see which one has that property. Did I spell it wrong again? No, I spelled it. Anyway, so like, I think it might be Elderwood. I kind of remember this. But since there's only 4 choices, you can just examine them. So Elderwood is here. And Elderwood is a Chinese group. I don't think they would be attacking Ukraine, so that's not it. How about Fin5? Fin5 is financially motivated. They speak Russian. Nothing here, obviously, about Ukraine. Let's try Dark Hotel. South Korean that attacked East Asia. And the last one would be Garamedon. Let's try them. There they are. They attack Ukrainian government. Okay, so I figured out what it is. So that's all. So it's more of the process. And I think while I'm at it, there are 3 listings. 3 listings for what? For Ukrainian? Oh, you found it. Good, yeah. Anyway, I was able to find it this way. So, you'll try different techniques. How would one use the attack matrix when doing IR? You mostly do it for attribution. And more people think attribution matters these days. They think you should figure out who is attacking you and why as part of defending yourself. So that's the point. That's why you'd use this group stuff. But the other part of it, this part here, is actually extremely useful because you can now rate your defenses. So, and also when you buy a tool, like a modern instant response tool or even a defense tool, everybody's pushing this. Everybody will rate their tool by the attack matrix. And you can get attack simulation tools that will simulate advanced persistent threat, and they will rate it by which one of these techniques it uses. And then you will rate your defenses by how many of these things it blocks. So this is the industry standard now. This is sort of like knowing how to read music if you're a musician. Every security product these days is pretty much tied into this matrix. So you will find people expecting you to know it, like they expect you to know the TCP/IP model and stuff. That's why. And by the way, there's now not only enterprise defense, which is the one all my projects are based on. There's other matrices. There's like personal or something. Enterprise matrix, and there is mobile and ICS. And now, just recently, there are mitigations, which is new and smaller, but they now have a list of mitigations, and they're trying to put them on the matrix. You can decide which mitigation is there. And now, if you use this matrix, for example, and you look at, say, exploit public-facing applications, they will tell you what might be here. Like you might have OpenSSH, or I would imagine RDP, and they'll have examples. Here's people that did it, who has used, like these people attacked Citrix, and these people use SQL injection, and then they will have recommended mitigations, and these are very useful. These are the things you should do to stop this. So it really is nice. It's this, like I say, this is beginning to make a science of this messy security stuff, where you can sort of follow a procedure. We're worried about this kind of attack, and then you can see what other uses have been made of that attack, who has used those, and you can decide how likely it is they're going to attack you, and then you can see what are the recommended defenses to put in. That's all it is. It's just a way to guide you into making more intelligent security decisions. So everybody in the business should be familiar with pretty much all these terms and the basic concepts here. That's all. Good. I think that's all I want to show you today about this. There's a cool thing in the last one, but I think I'll do that next time. And that's why I think you'll find these projects to be pretty easy. You just have to do some searches to do each one, but it's just a way, like the quizzes in the textbook, to sort of trick you into reading a book and studying. This is a way to trick you into reading this thing and studying it, because you will need to be familiar with these terms. It's important to have a good understanding of the code so you can reverse engineer the code. That's true. That's if you want to do malware analysis. Yes, that's true. But this is often used by somewhat non-technical people, like compliance officers and stuff like that, because most of this is at a relatively non-technical level. This is at sort of a management level, where you say, well, which vulnerability do we have? What would we have to do to stop that? Which is another important level of security. Not everybody is down in the weeds with the binary. They're up at the level of saying, which product should I buy to protect our network? And will that really stop the attackers that are likely to attack us? And that's the kind of thing that you can get some useful information about from this tool. All right, I'm going to stop this one.